And hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. As Allison introduced me, I am a customer success engineer. I've been with Citrix and ShareFile for a little bit over 6 years now. Now, again, focusing all directly on the ShareFile BU that we have. These sessions are continuing. We started this back last year, and we wanted to invigorate it a little bit more, and of course, get your attention. And hopefully, of course, you're either, of course, a repeating customer here with us today, or you're new. So let's get started. And of course, with every first slide we go to is a good thank you. I really appreciate everyone joining today. Again, spending some time with us, just kind of going some of these topics with ShareFile just to get the most out of it. Really appreciate it. Continue to join these. I'm going to have a link at the end that Allison will also send out. If you're not aware of our events and webinar page, keep an eye on that. We're always updating that with, of course, new content and upcoming webinars that focuses all on ShareFile, Right Signature, and also Podio. So those three topics, again, for those three services will be there for you to sign up. So again, keep an eye on that, and hope to see you on, of course, on the next one. Let's just talk real quickly about our agenda today. Again, everything's all about collaboration and with Microsoft nonetheless. So of course, I know we have a lot of Microsoft houses in here in terms of your company. A lot of people are using Office on the daily basis. And of course, with our integration in ShareFile, it makes editing very easy for documents like your Excel sheets, your PowerPoints, your Word docs. So we wanted to have this collaboration webinar just to kind of dive in a little deeper into what we can actually do and what those integrations entail. So from our agenda, we're going to just start basically just on simple how to edit Office documents. If you haven't done it already, just want to go through just some simple tasks to be sure that editing is enabled on your account. And your users can jump right in to start editing the Office documents that you have already stashed, or when you upload them up to ShareFile to start working on them. So we'll go over some what to know, some short tips, and then we'll jump into co-editing. You probably have gotten some emails recently, but we have pretty much enabled on all of your accounts the ability to do co-editing. If you don't know what co-editing is, it's basically Microsoft's way of being able to have more than one person working on a document at the same time live. So this isn't just you opening up simultaneously one other document that somebody worked on, you make an edit, save, and then that person has to edit it. No, this is all co-editing live. Work on it while somebody else is working on it. You could see what they're actually doing. So it's a really cool feature integration that we've introduced. So love to show just what it can actually do. It's very simple to get started with it. And then we're just going to jump briefly into some of our third-party connectors with Microsoft. Two of them mainly being a OneDrive for Business. We are talking about some of the personal connectors, as you can actually use your OneDrive personal account as well to integrate with ShareFile. So you do have those two. And then I didn't list it on there, but we will talk also. We do have a SharePoint connector that you can connect to. Those three connectors allow you to aggregate that data that's in those services from Microsoft and be able to access them right through ShareFile. So kind of have that one pane of glass experience, if you will. And then finally, we'll review Citrix Files for Outlook, our Outlook integration. It's going to save a lot of time on your side. And then also, of course, talk just briefly about a short little tip about our Citrix Files for Windows, how you can create documents right into your network drive to get it right into ShareFile right off the bat. So, and then we'll finish up with Q&A. As Allison said, we do have experts here right now. So as I'm going through things, please start to ask those questions in the Q&A section within GoToWebinar. We'll be happy to try to answer those live, but we'll have time at the end to again, discuss some of those live and go through some things if I didn't cover something. So I did want to start out with just one article that, of course, my colleague Allison, the hostess with the mostest, provided the other day, and actually really loved this one. This was from a company called Mural, or maybe I'm spelling that and we're saying that wrong, but it was an interesting article about how collaboration works in 2023 and some statistics around that. And this was one good piece from that article. And I do have the link there again. You can read through that. After the webinar, we will share that. But while nearly half of people spend 9+ hours a week in collaborating, 51% believe they aren't doing it well. And that's where ShareFile comes in. ShareFile is going to be able to give you that collaboration tool with all the different extensions and integrations like Microsoft, like we're talking today, to really kind of get that collaboration going with you. Especially again, when you're working remote and when there's somebody in the office, you can't really just go up to somebody and talk about collaborating on a document that you're both sharing. ShareFile makes it easy for that. And that's something like co-editing that we're going to show today that's really going to help you in 2023 make collaboration better with you and your peers. All right, and then finally, I do have some resource links here. Of course, you can't click on them, but these are links that we'll share again after the webinar. These are based on what we're going to talk about today. And again, we would love your feedback at the end of the day. These, of course, webinars are specifically for you. If there's something that I missed or something you want to see later on, definitely give us our feedback. Anything at all about just how we present or topics, it's going to help us, of course, form these webinars better for you as the client later on. So with that being said, let's jump right into the demo and get to some of the points that I laid out in our agenda. All right, so let me get my nice window pane over here, my browser, and we'll start off. Now, this being an expert class, I am skipping some parts to get into my ShareFile account, but as you can see, I'm in my dashboard now. I've logged in as an employee, and I have all my documents readily available that I've recently used and so forth. But just to kick things off, I did want to talk a little bit about editing. We're not talking about co-editing, but just editing Office documents. With our different capabilities of editing online with Microsoft, things like Word docs, Excels, and PowerPoints can be edited right through the web interface. So if you haven't done it already, one thing, and if you're an administrator, be sure, and by default this should be on, but be sure if you go down to your settings and admin settings and under advanced preferences, under file settings, there is, if you scroll down here, you will see Microsoft Office editing, and make sure that this is enabled. It could be off for certain reasons. You might have an instance of ShareFile that doesn't allow it, like our HIPAA instance. But again, for all intended purposes, outside of that, you should be able to have that enabled, and that is on by default. But if you have users that are going to jump through what I'm about to show you and they can't edit or it doesn't preview anything, let your administrator know. Be sure that, again, this option is enabled for that to actually work. So let's just kind of jump right into it. First, I'm just going to jump into one of the shared folders that I have a Word doc on. And again, this is fairly simple. This is a Word doc that I had uploaded. It's a new hire document. Say I'm on the road and I need to make some changes. I'm not at my desktop. I'm on the laptop I just got. I didn't have Office enabled already. The first thing I want to do is I want to jump in here and click on it. And then off to the right, first thing, of course, it will preview what you have as this document. In the current version, you can see some information at the top right for your details. And as easy as this, we're just going to click that little pencil edit icon, and that will open up a new tab for you. Now, first kind of going into this, you might be prompted for your Office online credentials to first log in. As an employee, you will require that to do that. But that will cache, of course, your credentials, so you shouldn't have to enter that every time. As you can see, mine already cached, so it just opened up right into Office Online. If you've ever used Office Online at all for editing or creating documents, this should be very, very similar to you. As, of course, Office Online progresses in terms of adding features and additions and everything, you will get that same effect, at least when it comes to going through ShareFile to edit these documents as well. So as you can see, I just opened this quick Word document. I have everything at my fingertips in terms of making edits. The great thing and feature about doing this online, instead of going, well, I could just go to my Office online and start making the document there. The great thing about it is that this is automatically saved back over to your ShareFile folder that it originated from. So there's no need to actually save, or there's a click of a save button up there. Anything I'm making changes to here, as you can see, it automatically starts to save back over to the originating spot I opened this document to. That's a great part, because then you know the document's always saved. If for some reason you lose power, you lose internet, you lost your work, just be rest assured that it is, of course, saved on the back end. So very simple here. You have, again, all your editing options. You can change this from editing to reviewing or just viewing, meaning you just want to look at the doc, but the preview option really does that with ShareFile. But again, just wanted to show some of the basic features here and how to edit a doc. So a couple other things that we want to now jump into is the co-editing part. Now, if you haven't seen this work, there are some things to note to get co-editing to work. Again, co-editing should be on your account. So all these steps that I'm showing you should be able to follow. If you have any problems in terms of being able to co-edit, you might want to reach out to our support team to be sure that your account is, again, set up for that. Again, accounts like our particular accounts like HIPAA accounts won't have that feature for online editing or FINRA. But other than that, you should be able to access the co-editing options. Also, under, I believe, our standard ShareFile SKU, we do not actually have the ability for the co-editing functionality there. So if you don't have it, reach out to your administrator. Be sure the editing option is enabled that I showed you earlier. And if they still can't find that, reach out to support just to verify that you should have it, and of course, they'll take care of you. So with that being said, I do have, again, a couple of my constituents here. Let's put something into place here. Like, I'm sitting here and I need to get this doc, of course, edited. I don't have time to sit there and send copies to them and wait for those copies to come back. I need to edit something now and I need their input. It could be that somebody needs to change something within a paragraph they did or a section in the document, or if perhaps it's my manager and they just need to approve it and I wanted to walk through some of the edits I made. They could, of course, comment on the document, things like that. So first thing I'm going to start out with is I'm going to choose that same document I had, and I'm going to click on Share. This will open up, of course, all your different choices. The two choices, of course, we want to focus on today, either email with Citrix or get a link. For this instance, I like to use the email with Citrix because that traditionally sends an email directly to the people that are going to co-edit, or I need to share that document to. Get a link. If you're not familiar with that, that generates a link that you could then copy, paste it in your email manually, or if you're in a chat program like Slack or Teams, you could send that link directly to them, and then they should be able to access it. So let's just jump right into our emailing. So the first topic here, or the top here, is your To section, and I need to add a couple of my colleagues. So I'm going to add, first off, we have Allison, we have Bruno on our team. And as you can see, this will generate, of course, a list for you. By the way, just a tip, if you don't see them come up or it's taking a little bit, you do have your address book over here. So perhaps you're getting their name wrong or something, or if you want to send this to, of course, a distribution group, so you have several people within that distribution group you want to send it to, you could always just click into the address book and choose those names. And then I have one person, Mr. Cord, that I am going to bring in, and then again, there's Mr. Cord. So I have all my two. Now, one point to make here is that, again, they actually don't need to be part of the system. I already had them, of course, assigned and user created, but if they're a client externally, they haven't created a user, I can simply put their email address in, and when I send this share out, it will generate the email so that it will allow them to create a client user for them. And again, retrospect-wise, we have two different type of users within ShareFile. One is an employee that we call, which is a licensed user. They have full features or permissions you can give them to be able to use ShareFile for the fullest. And then you have a client, which is a non-licensed user that just typically somebody you're externally sharing with. They don't need a license. They don't need, of course, the full features, but you need to share something with them or they need to upload something to you. That's what a client would be. So again, I could simply put in the email address and send that off to them, and they will get a link to create their user. And I'll actually go over a reason for that as well later on here. So for this, I'm just creating a simple subject in my email. Let's have a little message here. And then let's go down to edit message options. Now, when we talk about co-editing, there are some things you need to be aware of. When we are down here in the access options, be sure to drop this down and choose the view, download, and edit. That absolutely needs to be chosen if you want to do co-editing with this document. As you can see, sign in required. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of if the client doesn't have a user, it will walk them through creating one, so then they can log in to be able to edit that document. The great thing about co-editing is the employee would have to have the Microsoft Office 365 license, but the external client will not need that when they're editing this document that I'm sharing with them. So that's the nice part. If you're asking yourself, oh, well, they might need an Office, of course, account, but that is not true. The client can actually just log in and edit the document. We're the ones who just need the license. Of course, I can do some other security measures like expiring the link after so long, but we won't get into that today. And we're going to click done here and off to the races. Right, so those items are sent off. Now, Allison, when you can, if you can confirm, or Cord or Bruno, confirm that you got the email.
I got it.
Awesome.
Go ahead and open on my side and see how it looks.
Very nice, very nice. And as you see, as Allison, Cord, and Bruno are opening it up on their side, I'm going into the document and I'm going to go ahead and edit this as well. So this way we all have a session. And oh, Allison is number one here. She won the race. So she's in here first. You can easily see that co-editing is working because off the top right, we'll see the names starting to come in, and they're just abbreviated based on their name. And you could hover your mouse over it to see where they are on the location of the article. As you can see, I have Bruno here. He's starting to type here. And Allison made a comment. And I can comment back on these. So this is kind of what I was talking about in terms of collaboration, right? It's not just me editing a document. It could be that Allison maybe wanted to, of course, look at some edits that I did, and she could comment on these edits and make things right. And of course, now I have Cord here as well. So as you can see, this is not a one-to-one relationship. We can have multiple people. It could be a team of people actually in here. And you can also, again, use comments as a means of chatting, if you will. And of course, as you can see, everyone's making edits. And now, by the way, this is saving live. There isn't any need to have all of these individuals save their own copy. This is all going back to the originating file that I sent them. So that's the great part. If you have versioning enabled, it will. You can also have it back and save down and save it as a version, if you will. But for all intents and purposes, if I'm co-editing this and I want to work with them live, this is the document I'm going to do it in. So. And Allison is going to go to lunch, so she's leaving us already. So, but as you can see, this is where the collaboration, this is where, of course, the service really kind of shines in terms of, again, being able to get this document finished and completed without needing to send several different copies and then combining several different copies from the individuals that are working on this document. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it. So this is, again, co-editing in a nutshell. As you can see, there really wasn't much effort put into it. I would say the only effort would be if it's an external user that doesn't have an account created with your ShareFile instance already, they would create the account. But other than that, all, of course, Allison, Bruno, and Cord did were simply click on that link, they logged in their account, and off to the races, they're logged in. Very simple. All right, so let's move on. I'm gonna go ahead and close out my co-editing. I'm going to jump over to our Outlook for our plugin. We do have a couple of different plugins. Office, of course, Outlook is one of our best, I would say, applications for integration. Now, if you haven't used it already, and maybe I should actually show this first before I do, if you haven't used it already, you could simply come over to your instance here, or at the top right, you click on Apps, and we do have all our different applications listed here. For the one that I'm about to go over here is our Outlook plugin here. You can download it. We also do have Citrix Files for Windows. And by the way, we do have a Mac version you can download from our download page. But more consistently, of course, Windows would be more popular out there. But you know, in this, of course, example, we're just, of course, mostly going off of Windows. So we will go over Citrix Files for Windows for a quick tip at the end. But let me bring over our Outlook plugin. All right, so if you've downloaded, you've installed it, you shouldn't have a problem. It's a very lightweight plugin. Of course, the first couple things that it's going to ask you to do when you first launch, or the installer, is it's going to ask for your subdomain, and that's, again, the same subdomain that we have here, like my subdomain. It's going to ask you for that, and then it's going to ask you for your credentials. You could have single sign-on with your company, so you could go through that to sign on, or use your direct ShareFile account. And of course, log into that will plug in. You know that it's enabled by seeing of course, our logo at the top right here, and you have the options section here. And you can always jump in here, and as you can see at the top, you could see what account you're actually logged into. This doesn't have the ability to choose multiple accounts, so if you are an employee for a couple different accounts, this won't merge all of them. You would have to log out and log back in for, of course, the other accounts if you wanted to use them differently. But for this, I just wanted to show a quick demonstration. Once it's actually enabled by default, it should convert your attachment. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to send Allison, or actually, I think I had Cord saved in here. You have his old Citrix email, but that's okay. And all I'm going to do here is I can drag and drop, just like we have on the web. You could drag and drop a document that you want to share over to Cord. This doesn't necessarily need to be in ShareFile already, and I'll show you where you could do that if you have a document in ShareFile you want to share. But let me just move over one of my documents I want to share with him. This is simple drag and drop. Now, as you can see, it looked like attachment, but it simply already just converts it directly over to a link. Just like how, of course, you're creating links within the web, this automatically generates that link for this item. Now, since this document isn't already in ShareFile, this will be uploaded to my file box. If you don't know what your file box is, that is your temporary space. You could find it under your folders. You'll see file box. That's a temporary space for where these files go. If you want that permanently in your ShareFile account, you could simply move that file outside into a shared folder or personal folder, because those items will delete after, I believe, 180 days by default. So anyway, as easy as that, I have just default settings on here right now, and I could send this right off to Cord, and Cord should be able to download this. It does show my expiration, because I do have an expiration for it to expire after so long, and of course, it'll tell me the file name and the size. Now, for instance, if I did have a file on ShareFile that I wanted to do, I can come up to attach files, and I could choose from Citrix here. From Citrix Files, I can now see all of my different personal folders and share folders. And again, I could simply come in here and choose a file I want to attach. And as you can see, it will just bring those two into here. So when it does click the link, it will give them the choice of downloading those. He can, of course, choose one or the other. He could choose both to download. That's up to him. And also, this not only sends files, but say, for instance, and let me kind of clean the slate here, you can actually request files. So from Cord, if I needed to get something, and I'm just asking for that file, he knows what file it is. I could simply click on the request file option here, and that will generate a request link for me automatically. So again, there are some settings, additional settings there that you can actually change where those files go to. By default, it's going to go to your file box, just like how I uploaded something from my computer through here. It's going to go to the file box to be stashed. But we could change that another way. But from here, I could simply send that out to Cord, and once he clicks that link, it will get him to a page to ask to upload, and then he would simply upload, of course, the files that, of course, are needed. One additional note is, other than just attaching and requesting, you could also initiate a workflow. You do have things like your feedback and approval workflows that you can actually generate from here, so that's a nice touch. If you really like some of our built-in workflows, especially the feedback approval ones, this is an easy way to kick those off from here. So let me just briefly go over, as you could see by default, I was able to do a couple things and get, of course, a document linked and everything else. But we do have some other options here that can help make things a little better. You might say, yeah, I don't want, say, items to expire after just 6 months. I want them to expire after a year. So you could change some of these settings in terms of access and security from here, just like you would from the web. So you all have that capability directly from here. You could choose how files are attached and what they do. That one, I apologize. The last one I did was for encrypted emails, if you were doing encrypted emails. But you could also have, of course, again, different options of what they could actually do in terms of it. And as you can see, we could require them to sign in, of course, to access those files and so forth. So you do have an assortment of different ways of how to do it. You can also customize a bit more of how, of course, it displays when we're attaching files. Like you saw the banner I had. Instead, I could change that to a simple text link. So there's not a lot of element to it. It's very straightforward. So you do have a lot of usability here in terms of customizing it yourself. So I do stress once you do install, of course, Citrix Files for Outlook, be sure to jump in here, go through some of the settings, and notate, again, any of those changes you want to make here. Also, that requesting files that I did last, like I said, I chose it to go to my file box by default. But again, I can simply choose a location. And for instance, under my personal folders, I can have one for just a folder called receiving files. And then all those files that I'm requesting from can dump into there. You can change this, of course, with each iteration that you have when you're requesting a file. So you could change it if there's like a client that you're working with, you could choose the client. Like I have here with customer 1 or customer 2 under my shared folders. Oh, there's a different account, apologize. But basically, again, you could come in here and change where those files are uploaded to. All right. Now, last thing I wanted to show you in terms of the Outlook plugin is a little more of an administrative effort here. But say, for instance, you're an administrator and you want to default some of those settings that I just showed you. The one great thing is these can be set to different defaults, and also users can't have the ability to change them. Meaning, if I was a user and my administrator set something by default or prevented me from changing it, like saying expiring the link never. We didn't ever want to expire share links, which sometimes is not good. We want to expire them. We could set those defaults. So again, as an administrator, I could come under admin settings, advanced preferences, and then go to your enable ShareFile tools. And under that, you're going to see the Outlook plugin. Of course, that is enabled. By the way, that is something I should have noted in the beginning. If you're ever having problems with installation or you're getting an odd message that you aren't allowed to use the Outlook plugin, be sure that this tool is enabled in this section here for you to use it. Again, by default, it should be enabled, but just as a little tip there. And then click on Configure Plugin. You're going to see all the options that I went through on the plugin itself when I was going through them. But these allow me to set defaults. So for instance, like the expiration policy that I have, I could set a default and always have it so that it's defaulted to 6 months. And then I'm going to prevent users from changing that. So when I save that, as another employee, if I have that plugin installed and I'm sending a file out, I'm always going to have a default of 6 months as my expiration. And that user, myself, wouldn't be able to go and change that dropdown to say forever, because we didn't want that link to be out forever. It's, of course, a security thing. For auditing purposes, we want to be sure, again, that always, of course, expires after 6 months. So be sure, if you're an administrator on this call and you're looking to kind of lock down those things, especially, again, the Outlook plugin is so widely used, definitely take a peek into here. Pretty much, again, any of those options within the Outlook plugin can be set as default, and again, can be prevented from having the user change it as well. So definitely a great tip to hear for the administrators. All right, and I think the last thing we, I apologize, actually 2 other things we wanted to go through today. One being our personal connectors. This should be pretty straightforward. If you don't know what our connectors are and you're an administrator, you can always navigate under admin settings and connectors. If you do not see this, definitely reach out to support. We'll be able to help enable that for you for the connector pieces. But under connectors, we'll have all the third-party personal connectors and business-related connectors down below here. The ones, of course, we're talking about today, since it's all Microsoft, is we have the 3 from them, particularly the OneDrive personal. So you have your personal account, and then you have a OneDrive for business. That's typically, if you think about business, it's typically your Office 365 corporate account that you get within your company. And then you have SharePoint Online. So if you have an established SharePoint Online that has data, you want to aggregate that data because, hey, we're switching over to ShareFile, but we still have, say, some people using SharePoint for some particular reasons, and they still need to access that data there. We can actually access it from there. All you would have to do is you could simply click on these and click Add. Very straightforward in terms of asking what it wants. You can uniquely name this connector. And then, of course, you can go down to the site, put in the site. As you can see, the formatting of the URL is particular. So we do have a document. I put that on a resource page there to showcase some of the other capabilities of the URLs that you could customize to direct the connector to a particular folder or space that you have in OneDrive or SharePoint. So just be aware of that. And one caveat here as well, for instance, we have OneDrive for Business. If you are enabling that in your administrator, the first thing it's going to do when you first add this is, first off, it's going to ask who you want the connector to be available to. This isn't basically me just adding it and it's available for everybody. You do need to specify the users or your employees within ShareFile who has access to that. So that's a good piece just to remember, because you don't need to confuse anybody. If there's particular people that need OneDrive for Business or SharePoint Online to access those files still, you could just have or add those individuals that are in ShareFile and just give them those connectors. When you do add that afterwards, it will first ask you to trust the connector. So with Microsoft, it will direct you over to their site to trust it. Be sure that you're a global admin within your Microsoft environment, your Office environment, because you do have to authenticate first. Once that trust is done, then it becomes available to your other users. And all the users would need to do is authenticate once to their Microsoft account that you're using for OneDrive, and it will cache those credentials for you. So just a little tip there. Again, if you're an administrator and you're adding this for the first time, be sure you do have global admin access so that we could trust that connector first. I believe that's the same thing for SharePoint Online. We do have to trust it and add SharePoint Online as a trustee. So that is something just to be aware of as an administrator that you would want to do first. Skipping ahead just a little bit, once that is established, and say I'm a user, I'm coming in for the first time, and I made that connection. I already did this already, but I'm going to show you one other way. You have to authenticate first, but I've already established that. So in my OneDrive for Business, as you can see here, there we go, boom. It looks like just a plain folder. It looks like any other folder that I would have in my shared folders, but this is your living OneDrive. So anything you're putting in your OneDrive, of course, it will update here. It will pull and get through Microsoft's APIs to be able to deliver this data. Now from here, I can use the power of ShareFile to share out these documents. So I could preview these documents if I wanted to, just like I would, of course, any other document I had in ShareFile, but I can actually share these out. Just like we did before in sharing out an email, I could also do get a link, and it will generate that link for me. And again, I do have the ability to, of course, allow the recipients to do certain things within this document and make those changes as needed. But this is just, again, a great way of the aggregating of data, right? Instead of having your users have the OneDrive on their desktop, having SharePoint Online, and then you're telling them to go every which way, use the connectors and then have them just access ShareFile through web, of course, going to their ShareFile domain, or of course showing, like we did in, of course, Citrix Files Online, being able to access that data from there as well to do attachments. You have all your aggregated data from those two servers, or those, I should say, 3 services, which you can bring into ShareFile. All right, so we're running against time, and I did want to show one last thing here about oh, and actually, I apologize. Let me back up one other thing. I did forget to mention, of course, our Outlook or Citrix Files for Outlook, there is a online version for Office Online. So we do have that. If you just go to appsource.microsoft.com, you could type in Citrix Files and it will find it for Outlook. You just choose Get It Now. We are looking to actually extend and update this application. You haven't used it before. It basically works just like, of course, the desktop version of Outlook. So again, if you are an office that doesn't use the client version of Outlook and just uses the website, we do have Citrix Files for Outlook Online. Again, at source.microsoft.com, and simply put in Citrix Files and it should find it here. Now, let me jump over to Citrix Files for Windows. If you haven't seen that, that is basically our desktop tool, which creates a S drive for you by default when you do install it. Again, that's under the app section, under the web interface. Simply go to apps, and I'll show that again here under apps. And then that would be the Citrix Files for Windows. And of course, again, you have your Outlook there. But for Citrix Files for Windows, I did want to briefly talk about this. This is a great little tip if you haven't seen this already. But if I'm going into my Citrix Files and I have it installed, I see I have all my files. Now, of course, I could drag, drop, I can open files as I will. What I can also do is if I go into my documents here, I could simply right click and choose new and say choose a new Word doc. And in here, as you can see, there's a little blue circle icon. That means it's syncing to the cloud right now. And the green icon means that it's successfully in my ShareFile folder that I put it in. As you can see, I got a notification. But this is a real easy way just to create documents like this through Office. And as you can see here, I'm just opening my Office document. It's going to save a little temporary file there so it shows that I'm editing something. And now I can simply save that with my work. And again, as you can see, it's going to sync and it's going to update this in my ShareFile. So if I go back over to my ShareFile instance, I will be able to access that file right off the bat. Just an easier way, instead of if you're looking to work out of ShareFile more, just like through, of course, editing, co-editing, just like I showed you, you have the easy ability to create those documents right in your ShareFile instance by going through Citrix Files for Windows and being able to manipulate that data right here and creating those documents. So there's no need to create the document after, then drag and drop into your a folder of your choice. You could do it directly in Citrix Files under the folder that you're actually looking for. All right, I think we did a lot of run-throughs of some of our integrations. Of course, these are basically half an hour, 45-minute webinars. There are a lot more to it, but definitely if you're a Microsoft house, you use Microsoft daily within your office, 100% if you're a ShareFile user, take advantage of these options. These are only getting better. This is only the beginning of what we're actually doing to help integrate and allow you to collaborate better in 2023 and onwards. We're putting a lot more emphasis, obviously, in engineering and features. So these are just stepping stones into something greater. But hopefully today was educational. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Allison, see if we can field some questions. But I'm sure we got probably a lot of questions out of the way during the instance, and people were asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, you're lucky. I already had lunch. I mean, it's like 1:30 here. So yes, I did not fully leave for lunch. And we do have a lot of questions. One question about sign-in required. So when there's sign-in required, does the recipient have to create an account to be able to co-edit?
Yes, yes, that is required. So just one thing to note here is we can, of course, create users off the bat before this happens, though, again, that's not a problem. If I'm actually sending out somebody that I've never worked with in ShareFile, it's a new prospective client, they're new to ShareFile, we make it very simple. So if they're not already in it, you can first either go as under people, and if you're an admin, of course, doing this, you could go to browse clients and you could create clients here. Again, remember, you can have pretty much unlimited clients. Clients are not licensed. Those are people that are just really receiving, editing, sending you files without any of the other options like the connectors or, of course, having our right signature, of course, integration for document signing. They won't have any of that. Clients are just there for them to receive stuff and to send stuff to. Or to us, I should say. So, but you will get a link if it's somebody that you never worked with. Send it to their email address. It will follow through in creating them account. It's just very simple. It could, of course, just going to ask for their user information, a password, and if they do have multi-factor enabled for clients within your instance, it will have them set up a multi-factor authentication. But other than that, once they're in, they're able to log into their account and be able to edit right off the bat.
Yep. Great one.
Mhm.
So Peter has a good question about can you co-edit using the full-featured desktop version of the Office application? And I have our product marketing manager in the room with me, and luckily she has told me that that is coming. And we should actually have that support where you can, start an editing session even directly from like our Windows application directly to theirs. In the next few months is what we're thinking.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's going to be really, really important one. Just for the simple fact that with Citrix Files for Windows and our integration there, it should be more seamless, for them to do it because we do have quite a lot of users that, take advantage of our applications rather than the web. So we want to obviously give that full feature to those users as well. So I think that's a really good point.
yep. Um, Ellison is asking, how secured is the Citrix Files for Windows application? Do you have any insight into that, John?
Yeah, I mean, we do use, of course, state-of-the-art encryption here for your files at rest and, of course, in transit. So anything that you're saving with us in the cloud, or if you're storing, of course, data on-prem, we do encrypt that data for you. So this would basically be the same thing as if I would be, of course, sending you a document in regards to that, but now it's more secure because it's stored within our cloud, or again, with our on-premise solution with that. So I can't say we've had any problems with that or any notations. We do have a good white paper around security. I would say I could talk about it for a long time, but there's so many topics around it. I'm sure it'll make a lot of people's head spins. But I think, Allison, that would be a good article to send them as well, is around security, because that does obviously bring up a question. If I'm co-editing with people remotely, I might not have known them for a while, or they're just new clients. I don't know really how they are, the in and out. So I think that's a really good perspective. We do have a whole security white paper on that, and we'll definitely make sure we include that to kind of run over, of course, our in and outs. But we have 256 AES security encryption on the file. So latest and greatest. So you really should be rest assured in terms of keeping your documents secure.
Yeah, exactly. And Citrix Files for Windows does require a login, so it's definitely more secure than an anonymous link, I would say for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and certainly around the security settings that you have where you're expiring the link, or of course you can encrypt the email. So for instance, if well, I should say, let's just do one real quick here. I just want to showcase that some of those security measures outside of the just, of course, encrypting stuff. We do have a lot of different features in terms of, again, limiting the amount of downloads they can have. This is just outside of co-editing, but also, expiring the link, after so long. If you only want it after 1 day, you can make it after 1 day, so they can't access it after a day of it being, of course, in their inbox. And then, like we said, just like Alice said, requiring sign in for these and allowing them what to do. If you didn't want them to edit, that's fine. And you could choose they just want to view online only. So we do give that flexibility in terms of security when we're sharing, and that's where, of course, the importance comes from. And we leverage some of those third-party connectors like OneDrive and OneDrive for Business to be able to add that additional security instead of just going right to your OneDrive and sharing it from there.
Yep, great point. Oh,
Mhm.
one I was about to wrap it up.
Mhm.
Oh, there's a question from a user about how to enable co-editing files. So they may have missed it from the beginning. Can you go to the settings just real
Yep.
quick and make sure that everybody sees that setting?
Sure. Yep.
And
So
then
settings.
yep, and then once
Yep.
that's enabled, once you go to like an Office document, you'll have that edit option, right? Right, John, where you can edit and then you can
Yes.
share the editable shares.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So yeah, and we did enable co-editing for all accounts. Again, the just a couple caveats there. If you didn't pick up on it earlier, we of course can't do editing with accounts like HIPAA or FINRA. Those are really particular instances. So if you might be on an instance like that, that might not be available to you right now. Maybe something in the future, but that would be something just to kind of think about. Also, it's not available on standard accounts, standard ShareFile. So that's one thing, of course, to note as well. So if you don't see those things, definitely reach out to your administrator. If you're just a user within your ShareFile instance, be sure to show them, again, that settings, admin settings, advanced preference, file settings, and then about towards the end of the page, you see that Microsoft Office editing. Be sure that is enabled.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, if you aren't the admin, then just ask your admin to do it and then it'll be all set for you. I think that we'll go ahead and wrap up. I think there's a couple questions about like what kind of Microsoft Office. Glenda, I'm looking at yours. I'll make sure a product manager reaches out to you after this and gets you the right answer for that question. But we really appreciate you guys coming and learning a ton about how ShareFile and Microsoft work together and how we can make it easier for you guys to collaborate. I hope you learned something, and thank you, John, for being the hostess with the double mostest.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you, everybody, and hope to see you on the next one.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.